world map looks permanent. Borders feel fixed, like they have always been there and always will be. Open any atlas, any globe, any satellite view, and the lines seem carved into the Earth itself. But that is an illusion. In 1990, there were around 170 countries on Earth. Today, there are 195. In the last 3 decades alone, we have seen the Soviet Union dissolve into 15 separate nations. Yugoslavia break apart, Sudan split in 2, and tiny East Timor emerge from decades of struggle to claim its place on the map. The world is still being divided, still being redrawn, and the next additions to the atlas might arrive sooner than you think. Today we are diving into 5 places that could become brand new countries before 2035. Have you ever heard of Bougainville? Many people haven't, but it might be a new country sooner rather than later. In 2019, 98% of the people in this Pacific island voted for independence, and almost nobody is talking about it. Bougainville is a group of islands in the southwestern Pacific, currently part of Papua New Guinea. Geographically, it sits closer to the Solomon Islands, and culturally, many Bougainvillians have always felt distinct from the rest of Papua New Guinea. That sense of separate identity eventually turned into something far more serious. Between 1988 and 1998, a brutal civil conflict killed an estimated 15,000 to 20,000 people. One of the deadliest conflicts in the Pacific since World War II, fought largely over who controls Bougainville and its resources. The peace agreement that followed laid the groundwork for a future vote, and in late 2019, that vote happened. Nearly 98% chose independence. The problem is that the referendum was non-binding. The final decision rests with the Papua New Guinea Parliament, which has been slow to act. But negotiations are ongoing, with a formal timeline targeting independence somewhere between 2025 and 2027. Even if that slips a little, Bougainville looks almost certain to raise its own flag before 2030. And that flag, by the way, already exists. It features a cobalt blue field representing the ocean with a central design symbolizing local culture. It is a striking design, and it may be flying over a sovereign nation very soon. This country has its own government, its own military, its own currency, and its own flag. The only problem? The world says it doesn't exist. Somaliland declared independence from Somalia in 1991 after the collapse of the Somali state. While the rest of Somalia descended into decades of devastating conflict, Somaliland quietly built itself into one of the most functional democracies in the region. It did everything a country does, and yet, not a single United Nations member state recognizes it. The African Union has long resisted recognizing breakaway regions for fear of opening the door to endless separatist movements across the continent. That may be changing. In 2024, Ethiopia signed a memorandum of understanding with Somaliland that would grant Ethiopia access to the Red Sea coast in exchange for a step toward formal recognition. The deal caused an international uproar and may not survive in its current form, but it put Somaliland firmly on the global diplomatic radar in a way it never had been before. Once one country formally recognizes another, others often follow. Somaliland has been waiting over 30 years. Its moment might finally be coming. One of the oldest nations in Europe might be about to leave one of the most powerful unions in history, and the vote could happen within years. Scotland joined the United Kingdom in 1707, and for most of that time, independence was a fringe idea. Then something shifted. The Scottish National Party rose to dominate Scottish politics. A 2014 independence referendum came closer than many expected, with 45% voting yes. And then Brexit happened. Scotland voted 62% to remain in the European Union. Being pulled out against its will created a surge in pro-independence sentiment, and polls since have consistently shown the country roughly split down the middle. Getting a second referendum legally authorised by Westminster is the hard part. The UK government has refused, and a Supreme Court ruling in 2022 confirmed Scotland cannot hold a binding vote without Westminster's approval. But that door is not permanently closed. If pro-independence parties maintain consistent poll leads and strong election results, the political pressure will keep building. Scotland becoming independent is not guaranteed, but it is absolutely in play, and it would be the independence story the entire world watches live. This area could become a separate country named West Papua in the near future. In 1969, a population of hundreds of thousands living here had their entire future decided by just 1,025 hand-picked people. Indonesia called it a fair vote. The world accepted it. The people never did. The territory was colonized by the Dutch, administered separately from the rest of the Dutch East Indies. When Indonesian independence came, West Papua's fate was left unresolved, and that 1969 vote, widely condemned as manipulated, was how Indonesia settled the question. West Papuans have been pushing back ever since. Since then, a persistent independence movement has faced serious military opposition, and the region has been largely closed to foreign journalists, making it one of the least reported conflicts in the world. In recent years, though, Pacific Island nations, particularly Vanuatu, have been raising West Papua's case at the United Nations, driven by a sense of solidarity with the indigenous Melanesian population. The path to independence is steep and would require a fundamental shift in Indonesian policy. But the movement is alive, the international advocacy is growing, and by 2035 the pressure could look very different. There is a place in the Pacific that is technically part of a country it no longer wants to belong to, and most people have never even heard its name. Chuuk is one of 4 states that make up the Federated States of Micronesia, a small island nation in the Western Pacific. Chuuk is by far the most populous of the 4 states. It is also the most dissatisfied. For years, it has been pushing for its own independence referendum, frustrated by what many locals describe as political and economic neglect from the central government. Plans for a vote have been drawn up and delayed multiple times, and the Federated States of Micronesia's Compact of Free Association with the United States adds another layer of complexity to any breakaway attempt. But the will is there. Chuuk has its own distinct identity, its own traditional culture, and political leadership that genuinely believes a different arrangement would serve its people better. If a referendum is eventually held and passes, Chuuk would become one of the smallest sovereign nations on Earth, a tiny constellation of coral atolls and volcanic islands in the vast blue of the Pacific. It would also need its own flag, one more added to the atlas of the world. The world map is not finished, it never has been. History is still being written, borders are still being drawn, and somewhere out there, a flag is waiting to be raised for the very first time. Which of these 5 do you think will make it? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe if you want more videos like this one.